always seems to be something else to do on the frame of this car. I've pointed out this rust hole before. It goes straight through the body outrigger and the frame. I think this outrigger was just designed to collect water and rust itself through. So right now I'm thinking I'm going to build two completely new ones. This is going to be my last video focusing on the Spitfire frame, knock on wood. As you have seen, it started out in pretty rough shape, and to be honest, even after going through it, could be better. But this is me fixing everything important and doing a few extra mods, starting with these body outriggers. I made the new ones with box tubing because there will be no way for water to get inside, and it's stronger than the original bent sheet ones. Since the new parts are stronger, I made the ends a bit thinner just so the mounting bolts don't stick out as far. I guess I didn't film it, but I did weld in sleeves for the outer mounting bolts at some point, more to keep water out of the box than for strength. These threaded inserts for the inner bolts will need some kind of sealant to do the same. I made a piece of plywood with the mounting bolt pattern drilled into it. This way I could saw off one outrigger at a time and use it to position the new one for welding. These overlapping pieces are the worst part of the original design. Water gets in through the holes, but it lingers in that area. There was some kind of coating from the factory to seal it, but it obviously didn't last. I patched in new steel on the underside. I never did grind the welds down on this or most other repairs really. This ain't gonna be a show car, and at least on the frame I kinda like being able to see the work that I've done. Using my plywood pattern, I fixtured up the new outrigger. You may notice there is a large gap between it and the frame. Not entirely sure how that happened or whose fault it was, but it wasn't bad enough to make me consider redoing the parts. So I just filled it up with weld. Bad practice, maybe, but it's my car and I say it's good enough. Owning two rusty geo-trackers has taught me you only need about half your body mounts anyway. Finally picked up a replacement front end. It's off in 1980, so it's got a bunch of extra rubber bumper related shit on it that I need to get rid of. Sawzalled this off of a frame that was probably in better shape than mine was to begin with, but it was going to end up going to the scrapyard anyway, so I don't feel too bad. This is all the stuff I could simply unfasten. Everything else was welded on. I tried to find and drill out spot welds, but I also did a fair amount of just grinding at shit until it came off. Here's one side cleaned up to match my 72, and here's the other with all the crap they slapped on by 80 rather than doing a good job at designing a car. After removing all that, I welded up the gouges I made, as well as a few patches and rusty spots. This I did grind flush because it looked like shit. Next, I scribed a couple lines on the frame and cut off the front end. I used the sway bar mounts as a reference so I could make the same cut on the replacement part. Off it goes. One side of the frame was still mangled from the crash. Luckily, it looks like I already got the section behind the new crossmember tabs pretty straight before I welded them in. Once the inside was straight, I torqued a piece of angle iron inside it to push out the other side. That was easier to control and reached deeper inside the frame than a hammer. I didn't take any reference measurements of the original front crossmember because it was so fucked up, so I'm making sure this is where it needs to be with a couple of different methods. Got two C-clamps holding the vertical walls aligned, and I'm using this joint as my reference for the whole thing, because that was the one I was able to cut the most cleanly. So after butting that joint up as well as I can, fixing it in place with these verticals, I'll check it for square with the new cross member. Hold the tape parallel to the frame rail. Got 17 and 7/16 on the right side, the outside. And 17 and 7/16 on the outside here. So we're good in this direction. And to make sure this new cross member isn't twisted in that direction, I'm using a woodworking technique, setting up parallels on the front edge. And as you sight along them, you can see the one in the back disappears along its entire length at the same time, meaning this isn't twisted. And those two checks should be enough to get it located, but for good measure, got another set of parallels checking the heights relative to the frame, and we are good in that direction too. Some people like to put plates over the seams of frame splices like these, but I don't think that's necessary. These are full penetration welds that I didn't even grind down, so there's no reason they shouldn't be stronger than the parent material. So I plan to use this car every day when it's done, and my life makes a good trailer hitch a must-have. I've seen Spitfires tow trailers, but the hitches all seem to mount through the body. Since I'm doing all this chassis work already, I decided to extend the frame to make a proper hitch. You might wonder why such a little car needs this, but when you think about it, the drivetrain can absolutely handle the load. It's got an upgraded differential, stout new drive shaft, transmission from a 5-liter Mustang, and the diesel engine from a car that towed a trailer full of motorcycle and wood through the Appalachians while getting 30.9 miles per gallon and outweighing the Spitfire by 1,000 pounds. So with some decent trailer brakes, this little baby sports car will be capable of hauling things that it looks like it has absolutely no business hauling. I needed to drop the body back on the car before I made the frame extensions, so I put the engine back to check some clearances at the same time. Since it's moving less than a mile, I just fixed the steering in place with various clamps. Once I got the body on, I made a cardboard template for the frame extensions, making sure to give them a 1/4 inch of clearance to the body and that the extensions and vertical receiver would stay hidden. I still haven't gotten rid of the donor car, so I pulled off the trailer hitch to salvage some steel for the Spitfire. If anybody wants the sad husk of a 2002 VW Jetta, please let me know. Using my cardboard templates, I cut and welded the extensions with some extra length to fit up in place. I stuck my 1/4 inch spacers on the body, held the extensions up next to the frame, and marked out where to trim them to length. After cutting, I tacked all the pieces together so they would still be able to flex side to side. This let me get the spacing just right as I fixtured the extensions in place. I tacked it to the frame the same way, allowing it to flex side to side. With the body back off, it was easier to square it all up for the final welds. Again, full penetration welds that shouldn't need additional reinforcing. I capped the ends of the tubes and welded in the receiver. The chassis is back from sandblasting. I paid to have that done because I didn't want to do it. And unfortunately there are a couple of new holes showing up in this front end piece that I replaced. I patched these holes, but I was pretty annoyed at this unexpected problem, so I did it the easy and dumb way. I did the base coat in Chassis Saver Black, which is matte finish and not UV stable. The finish coat I did off camera was Eastwood Gloss Chassis Black. I sanded in between, but it still didn't seem to be adhering super great, and I've scratched it off in a few places. So for your reference, these two paints may not play nice with each other. Well, I thought I had gotten all the sand from the blasting out of this, but I went to flip it over, and more of it has appeared and dumped itself on the wet paint. Probably wasn't the worst thing to happen at this point, because I realized I forgot to remove the flanges in a few spots to clear the accessory drive I modeled in CAD. At least this stopped me before I had the whole thing painted. This time I made sure to clean the shit out of the inside of the frame by sticking the vacuum at various holes and blowing in compressed air to stir up dust. After finish coating, I was finally able to start assembling all the parts that I rebuilt and painted off camera. At some point, I'll get one of those kits to spray paint inside the frame too, but that can be done at any point. Just showing you putting oil in the diff so you can get a good look at rear cover Mark III. I also had to reshim the bearings after we put it in the car here, because only then did I notice how much play there was. And it turned out it wasn't really shimmed at all. There was just some kind of gasket material that somebody squished down and hoped was close enough. This fucking diff, I tell you what. Once it was back in for real, I bolted up the axle adapters my dad made and the rest of the rear suspension. I did not replace the shocks and springs because those are regular maintenance items and I will replace them when they actually need it. How about that? Looks like a car again. Once it was back on the ground, I noticed one axle is actually an inch longer than the other. Somebody put a later model part on the driver's side. Infuriating, of course, but I don't want to take it apart, and it will drive that way, so a problem for another time, I guess.